begin with Milt. What brought you to Pemberton?
Well, that's a 2-day story. I arrived in Toronto. I got off at 7:47, arrived in Toronto, and I took a limousine from the airport to the train station. And there was a train parked there that was the newest train that we'd ever seen in Canada. And it was an atomic train run by a NASA.
Sweetie.
And I saw all the cars were named BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. So I walked down to the BC car. I had a suit and tie on and overcoat over my arm. And I thought, oh, BC car, yeah, I'm from BC, I'm going to get on. So I got on. The train was taking off to Montreal. No tickets, no nothing, I just walked on. And when the train took off, a Mountie in red serge came on and sat down beside me. And I kind of looked around and I was getting very uneasy. The guy had been stationed in Squamish. And he told me about Pemberton, and he said, you won't believe it, he said, I had to go up there once a week and invoke the law. He said, but everybody knew I was coming because they sent smoke signals from Squamish to Mount Curry. And they were all like angels when I arrived there. And he made it sound so interesting, I had to come and have a look. So I came up to look, and I got off the train, and of course everybody in the old Pemberton Hotel was staring out the window at me, which was normal for Pemberton. And I bumped into Dale and Larry Allen, who I'd met in Vancouver. They used to live next to me, oh, I don't know, 50 years ago. And they told me they had a hotel in Pemberton. And there I was at the hotel. And they made me feel welcome. Everybody in town shaking my hand. I thought, well, this is a nice town to be in. I said, how many people here? 271. I thought, perfect. You know, nobody would know me. At the time, I was working for Greyhound Lines of Canada out of Ashcroft. And I got frustrated and I got sick of the job because I was never home. So I quit, and that's how come I ended up in Toronto. Anyway, as we go on with the train, we hit a semi-trailer loaded with meat. And 47 people were injured, and I was one of them. And the Mountie was another one because I was on top of them. Oh, what a train trip, and an atomic train, I'll tell you. So I thought, well, I'm going to go look at this Pemberton. So I got back on another plane the next day, flew back to Vancouver, caught the bud, BC Rail bud up to Pemberton, and had a look at it. Then I went home to tell my wife. And she thought, oh boy, here we go again. I said, oh, it's a lovely little town, you'll just love it. I said, but let's give it 5 years. 5 years, and if you don't like it, we'll move. Okay. So I sold everything in Vancouver, got a 5-ton truck, and brought it to Pemberton. Took me 6 days to get here. Got just north of I can't remember the creek now. But anyway, there's a mountain slide. And it all came down on the road and the railway track. So we sat there for 24 hours hoping they were going to open it, which they didn't, because another slide came down behind me. So I had no choice but to sit there. There was my wife and I, my dog, my cat, and my son. I didn't have my daughter then, did I? No. My son. And BC Rail brought in a car for us, and we spent several nights in there eating steak dinners. My dog was eating steaks that thick, compliments of BC Rail. But eventually the road opened and we got through to Pemberton. She thought, oh boy, why did I say yes? But here we were. I had been trained by the Vancouver Fire Department. I'd driven ambulance in Vancouver for Kingsway Ambulance, which has since blown up and long gone. So I did know a bit about the ambulance service and firefighting. When I got here, I didn't tell a soul, not a soul. And one day I met this guy by the name of Roe Mercer, and he said, how would you like to join the volunteer fire department? I said, oh no, it's too dangerous for me. Oh, okay, just thought I would ask. Well, this went on for about 3 years. And then my training officer from Vancouver came to Pemberton looking for me. And he bumped into Roe at the hotel. That's where he met everybody. And he said, oh yeah, he says, I trained him. And he said, I was his captain at hall number 9. Oh yeah. Of course, Roe was lit up like a candle, you know. He said, oh boy, there's new blood. So he went to the mayor, which then was Ben Cherry. And Ben Cherry met me the next day, and I said hi to him, kept walking. And he said, oh, by the way. And I said, what? He said, we're looking for a fire chief. Can you take over the fire department? I said, no, I don't know anything about it. And he said, well, that's not what I'm led to believe, he said. And he told me about Roe meeting this guy. And I said, well, let me think about it. So I took a month and thought about it. Next thing you know, I was there. So I went down and I looked in the fire hall and I thought, oh shit, what kind of crap is this? There was an old beat up truck with no roof on it, and they told me the temperature went down to -30. And I thought, you can't drive that. There's no snow tires on, there's nothing, there's junk. And there was another van there that all this junk came out of. And I believe that they attempted to do one trip as an ambulance. And I think it broke down on Suicide Hill. So I looked at that and I thought, no, I can't do that. So I thought, well, we've got to get going on this. We've got to buy equipment. So Ben Cherry said, well, how much are you looking at? And I said, oh, I don't know, 100,000, 150,000. I said, that's a good start. I said, there isn't enough hose to even fight a fire. So we have to have all new hose, and we have to have proper gear. There's no gear in here. There's a helmet with a hole in the top. And I said, we've got to get rid of that. And got to get rid of all this stuff. I said, it's no good. And they came up with a bit of money, about 20%. Told me to go ahead and spend it. Well, you know, a taxi trip to Vancouver was 20% in those days, so I couldn't do much. But as time progressed, we got rid of the old van. So anyway, we ordered a truck. It was a 71. In 71, we ordered a brand new Ford. And then we got rid of that other piece, and all of a sudden there was pressure put on me to do this and do that and do that. And I thought, well, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I incorporated the fire department with search and rescue. We started up search and rescue in the 70s. And we bought another new truck it was a 65 GMC, wasn't it? Didn't that come before the Ford?
Yeah, I think it did. Ford was the first
Yeah.
good one.
And then all of a sudden we had one truck too many, so we had to add on to the fire hall. And then a few years later we had another truck too many, so we had to add another bay on to the fire hall. And I see now they just added another bay. So it progressed as time went along, and all of a sudden more and more people were coming into Pemberton. And we got more and more calls, and pretty soon it was vehicle accidents. Well, we need a rescue vehicle. So we ended up getting a rescue vehicle. And then all of a sudden it was water accidents. So we bought a 20-foot Zodiac. And then they thought I was spending too much money. And I said, well, you know, if you're going to give the service, you've got to spend money. So I decided that we needed a vehicle for search and rescue, but the village didn't want to give me any. So I got hold of BC Tel and told them about all their workmen that were going to drown because we couldn't get to them because we had no vehicle. Well, BC Tel came out with a vehicle. So now we have a search and rescue, the first vehicle. We need 100,000 for equipment and 50,000 for the vehicle. So I wrote BC Electric, BC Hydro then, they'd just taken over. And they gave us a 4x4 truck with a big box on the back. And that was our first rescue vehicle. I thought, well, where are we going to get the money? So I sat down with my wife and I said, we need $100,000 to buy an ambulance. Because now the RCMP are phoning me and I'm using this dirty old Volkswagen bus that was falling into holes all the way down Highway 99 because there was no pavement. And I ended up with a taxi business here. And one day I picked up a guy and his name was Dr. Fox. And he had red hair. And he was from Ottawa. And he said, how long have you been here? I said, oh, just a few years now. And he says, what are your plans? I said, oh, I don't know. It looks like I'm going to be going into the ambulance business if I can find some money. Oh, he says, I'm with the Department of Indian Affairs. He says, and I've got lots of money. And I said, oh, was that right? So we had a little talk, and he says, I'll send you a ticket. You come down and visit me and show me your plan. I said, okay. So I went home and I drew up a plan. And I went to Ottawa, gave him the plan, and he said, I'll put 100,000 in your bank account tomorrow. And I said, okay, I'll order the ambulance. So I came home and I said to my wife, we're not going anywhere till I see the color of the money. But the next day the bank phoned me to say that Ottawa had dumped this $100,000 in there. Now nobody in Pemberton knew about it, not a soul. So I bought the ambulance. It's now paid for, specially built, had Pemberton's name on the side and everything. And I started the service. And now, in 1974, the government took over, but not without a big fight, of course. They offered me 10 cents on the dollar. And I said, no. Well, what are you going to do with it? We're going to take your license plates. I said, who cares? I'll put it up on blocks in the backyard, and every Saturday night I'll go out and fire it up and turn the lights on and blow the siren and pretend I'm on a call. It's mine. I can do what I want with it. Well, we'll give you both a full-time job. I said, well, no, I don't really need a full-time job. I came up here to retire, not to work. Well, the next thing you know, I was working day and night. It just mushroomed on me, blue and blue. Well, we do have that new fire truck, and that was thanks to Shirley Henry when she was mayor. And we did get a new fire truck, and we paid $210,000 for it. Just a beautiful truck. I designed the whole thing and sent it down to the builders, and they built it for us.
You had these two services, and what we didn't really appreciate, the extent to which this whole fire department and the ambulance service was organized until the flood of '84. And when that happened, that was a pretty drastic event for this community. And it turned out that your fire department and your leadership were so important to sort of the emergency response to that event. Could you sort of describe that for us? Because that was had to be a highlight, even though it was a very, very difficult time for everybody.
Well, it's the biggest disaster I ever got involved in, and I spent 6 nights at the fire hall without any sleep, working day and night. And when I finally went to sleep, it was under the pool table in the fire hall. Because I couldn't get home. There was still water everywhere. But it was Meager Mountain again. And it had fallen down, and there was a lake up there loaded with water, and all the water came down. And a block, no, right here. Right out here we had water. That was 6 feet deep at the drive-in.
Oddly enough, Milt, something that comes into that is that the road acted like a dike, and there was no water in Signal Hill School.
That's right, yeah, I remember that.
No, well, I
But
was
the high
small,
school was
still
wiped
student
out.
at that time, but there was no water because the road acted like a dike.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
surprising.
anyway, that was a hell of a mess, and I had incorporated search and rescue into the fire department with the plan of down the road separating it, because I didn't want all my manpower out on a mountain somewhere while I got a 3-alarm fire going in Pemberton. And we hadn't quite got to that point, and then Shirley Henry, when she was mayor, decided that I was going to be the emergency coordinator. Well, I had written a village plan, and I had just finished written it a week before the flood. And I was still issuing copies to the different people that were taking parts in the flood. And it worked out very well, but there's a few things I'd forgotten about. And it sure screwed me up. People that were evacuating were bringing all their animals to the fire hall. Now, I had llamas, I had donkeys, I had cows, I had horses, I had cats, dogs, chickens, and they're all in the fire hall. And I tell you, that creates a lot of dung. Oh, it was unreal. And then we had different things went on that just weren't copacetic, but it worked. We had one of my captains called in that he had a bull up on the mountain jammed in between the tree and the mountain, and he was giving birth. This time I was groggy and didn't understand what was going on. All I only knew is that he needed the rescue vehicle and 100 feet of rope. So I sent it to him. These guys are plowing in water 4 feet deep, but they made it and they got the bull out. And I said, after a while I woke up and I said, Tom, how are you making out with that bull? Got her down. I said, since when do they have calves? Oh, he said, I was just kidding. I said, I thought you were serious. And it kind of, it jars you, these weird things happening. And we ended up with the record for the most helicopter usage of any disaster in BC. Wasn't that it? And we had helicopters all over the place. I had one for my captain, one for my deputy chief, a couple for the firefighters, a couple for the rescue guys. We all had helicopters, and the government was paying the bill, so we were quite happy about it. It was unbelievable what was going on with that flood. But all the houses were just loaded with water. Everything was being thrown out. Fridges were going, Chesterfields were out in the front lawn, and hay was starting to catch fire. And Shirley contacted the military, and they sent up the military, 100 and some odd guys, I think it was, yeah, to work on the barn fires, because we didn't have time. We were too busy doing our other things. And we had no police, so we had to act as police too, to keep the looters out, and there were looters here. Yeah. And the police were all up at Blackwater. They had a boat accident where 3 guys drowned. Yeah, and they're sitting on the shore with these 3 bodies, didn't know what to do with them. They couldn't get a helicopter, so I had to send them one of mine. So we finally got them out of here. So, oh yeah, that was a real mess. I delivered this little kid, and we made it down to the hospital. Everything was fine. It's strange, but no doctor is capable of doing much out in the field because they're not trained for it. The ambulance crews are trained to do it. They'll go up and down the cliffs. They'll crawl into burning cars. They'll do this, that, and the other thing. But an MD won't. If the patient isn't laying there flat out on a white table with a white cloth, they're lost, totally lost. So we did all the work. In total, since I've been here, I held the provincial record for delivering babies. I did 69 babies with 2 sets of twins. And that's unheard of in the ambulance service. Nobody's beat my record yet, and I've been retired from it for 10 years. So, I can remember one time I had a breech birth, and the woman's the baby stuck his arm out. Well, nowhere in the ambulance history do they tell you what to do when an arm comes out. You can't grab the arm and pull the baby out,
No.
you know, and you can't push it back in because you hurt its arm. So I thought about it, and I said to my driver, pull over here. And he pulled over, and I still wasn't sure what to do. And I thought, I know, he's coming out of a 98-degree temperature. So if I lower the degrees by 20 or 30, I'll get him to turn around. But I didn't have anything that was that cold, but I did find a pop bottle under the seat of the ambulance. So I took the pop bottle, stuck it outside in the snow for about 3 minutes, got it nice and cold, and I brought it in and put it on his leg. No problem. Away went the arm. 5 minutes later, he turned around and stuck his head out. So I had those are little tricks of the trade, but you have to do. You have to do what you have to do in order to make it a success.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have to take them, like everyone, all the way to Lionsgate?
No, a lot of them went to Squamish Hospital.
Okay. So you didn't
Yeah,
have to
but
go.
Lionsgate was more. The more serious stuff all went to Lionsgate.
But you still had to drive either to Squamish or to Vancouver. It's quite a ways.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the road going up and down. I did 4 trips in one day to Lionsgate. But in those days, it took you 6 hours a trip.
Yeah.
You know, it was slow.